So can you give us some tips or them some tips on what are some types of multifamily properties they should be looking at, especially in this market, either looking to get into if they're a starter investor, or let's say they're an active investor that like us who, I've got 35 units, Larry's got 100 plus units. What are some tips that you have for investors from a general level of types of multifamily? Yeah.
I think the best multifamily properties to buy, exclude A, B, C quality, excuse the quality and the location, is something that's been owned by a mom and pop for 10, 15, 20 years. They probably don't have a mortgage or very low. They know the tenants well, so they haven't really raised the rents a lot. They have personal relationships with the tenants, and they just haven't really maximized the value of the asset because they haven't needed to. They make enough money, they're fine, they're comfortable, but they're retiring now and they want to sell. So if you can get your hands on one of those and then you go in and you renovate, you give this maybe a Class C building, Class A renovations, and you're able to get market rents for it. Number one, you can buy it at X and you can improve it to the point where maybe 20, 30, in some cases we've seen 40 to 50% increase in rents from renovations. Okay. And now your down payment that you put into that, you go to refi a year and a month later and you're getting all of your money out of that building, all of it, and maybe even some extra. And then you still own the building with cash flowing, and it's still going to appreciate over time, because the reality is most people think, cash flow is what you should look for. It's appreciation that's most important. Mm-hmm. They don't call it cash flowing. They call it investing. Can I tell you a quick story?
Sure, please.
Okay. So there was a building that I sold an investor, Evan and I did, in 2010 for $40,000 a unit. And we sold most of his other portfolio, and he came to us and says, look, I want to sell this deal. So we put it on the market. This was Alta Villa. I think you might have seen it.
Yeah.
94 units in West Palm Beach. He wanted 150 a door. This is, right after the pandemic when prices were in the 130s, maybe 140s in West Palm Beach. And we said, all right, 150 door makes sense. We put it on the market. We got 19 offers, list price offers, and his son convinced him not to sell the property. His son introduced him to a money planner, a financial planner with a master's or doctorate degree in financial planning. And they sat down, went over the numbers. He's like, what are you doing? You're making almost $220,000 a year cash flow with this property. Why would you ever sell it? And he said, Daniel, he's right. I make a lot of money in this property. Why would I sell it? And this is the gentleman's name was Joe Barone, and he was a very intelligent guy. I don't even think he graduated high school, let alone college. But he was a 76-year-old Italian guy, and he was a hardworking guy, still changing toilets, changing cabinets. And he built everything with his hands, scraping with his hands. And we had sold maybe $40 million worth of real estate for him prior. And this was his last big deal. And I was like, Joe, if you sell the building, how much money are you going to net? Probably about $10 million. How long you own the building? 9.5 years, 10 years. Okay. How much money do you say you make every year? 200,000? What's 10 million divided by 10? $1 million. $1 million a year in equity growth. Where'd you make the money?
Appreciation.
He was like buying and selling. Like, look, I'm sure this guy with a doctorate degree knows what he's talking about financial planning. He doesn't know shit about what you do. He has no concept of what you do and how you make money. What you do blew his potential return basis through the window. And he at the window. You made $10 million. You made $1 million a year in equity growth. That's how you've made your money every single time. The other property we sold you for $15,000 a door, and you sold for $115 a door, where'd you make the money? When I sold it and bought it. Bingo. You didn't make it from the cash flow. Cash flow is the bonus.
Yeah.
Sold the building. He decided to put it back. He decided to take one of those offers and sell the building. He was like, you know what? You're right. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah. And one of the most amazing aspects of that is every year it's appreciating. It's tax-free, at least until you sell it. And then it can still be tax-free if you use a 1031 exchange.
And your debt
to
doesn't
roll into
go
the
up.
next property. Yeah.
Really, really, really wealthy investors, they'll buy an asset. Mm-hmm. Okay. They'll take the cash flow, or they'll reinvest the cash flow in the property, improve it over time, and then they'll refi it tax-free.
Keep refinancing.
If you owe a $10 million building, it's worth $10 million. You have $2 million in debt. You pull out $5 million. You got $7 million in debt. You got $5 million tax-free in your pocket. You don't pay taxes on that. It's free money.
Yep.
And then what happens in 5 years when a building's worth $15 million? Pull out another $3-4 million, tax free. Wait another 5 years, worth a couple more million. Pull out a couple more million, tax free.
Yep.
Cash flow is taxed.
While getting depreciation on your taxes, 27 and a half years, I think it is, depreciation. And so you're writing off all of that income that he's getting, the $200,000 in income, plus I'm sure he's getting income from other sources, and he's writing that off of his taxes.
Not only that, but if he's renovating that building, then he's going to get a lot more of a depreciation reset. He'll get reset that depreciation. So if you're accelerating the depreciation on the cabinets, say you're going to renovate 50 of the 100 units, you're going to pull out those cabinets in working condition. You're going to pull out the light fixtures, the baseboards, everything you can pull out of that unit in working condition with the demo, pay a little extra. You pull it out, you have it appraised, you donate it to Habitat for Humanity, you get an extra 45% deduction. Yeah. So you get 145% depreciation on that specific renovations. And then when you renovate, you reset your depreciation for the new schedule.
But I think,
powerful.
Not just saying this because Larry's here, but I think Larry's a great example of how you grow and scale business. I remember when we first met, I think you were doing a lot of like 2-4 unit deals. Then you bought an 8-unit deal. I'm probably leaving out some details and things like that. But I guess what I'm getting at is not being afraid to start somewhere. And it doesn't have to be the most glamorous of
Adam's
properties.
got a good point here.
Right?
Footprint.
Getting a footprint, starting somewhere, focusing on a market. And then growing from there, like to your point of whether you're doing a 1031 exchange, you buy the quad or, maybe a 5-unit, 6-unit and, add value in that. And then maybe you're growing that into a 15-unit building, et cetera. Right. Or you're, taking the cash out, from a refi, still owning the property that you have, and cash flowing but using that capital that you used from the first property that you bought and, growing that and buying another property, right? I think, again, I've seen Larry do that to, where you had when we met, maybe, I don't know what it was. I know at least maybe 8 units, maybe you had 10 or a little bit more, but now, you're around 100 or so, like you said. So, watching
scaling up.
Larry grow and exactly, scaling up, but just not being afraid to start somewhere and don't think that you're going to start with, the most beautiful property Main in Boca Raton or, off Las Olas in Fort Lauderdale or something like that. You may have to go into a tougher neighborhood.
You got a good point.
And
Get
most people don't go from 0 units to buying a 24-unit complex. How big was the one that you purchased from them? For them?
14.
Yeah.
14 units. There you go. Most people don't go from 0 to 14 units. You go from 0 to maybe buying a duplex or buying a triplex, and then maybe you buy another one. And then maybe you buy, that's kind of what I've been doing. I've been buying triplexes and quadplexes. Then I scaled up to buying 2 sixplexes. And now my next venture, when the time is right and I'm ready, is to go bigger. Go 12 units, 18 units, and 1031.
Become big time like Larry is what you're saying.
That's it. I'm trying to one day.
That was a perfect property, Larry.
Step in your shoes. I know.
That was the example that I gave, too.
At the finish line.
That property was the example I gave, too. Like an old mom and pop that owned it forever. They built it.
Right.
You bought it, and you're like, man, they didn't rent it right. They didn't really raise the rents, and you killed it with that deal.
And they put some money into it, though, right?
Yeah, always. But more cash flow into it, as you were making a comment about, instead of just plowing in an extra $200,000 day one and just like emptying the building and just doing the reno. We turned little by little here and spent the cash flow on renovating.
Holding costs on vacant units is not worth it. Yeah.
It's also. Yeah, it's just not ideal. It's a little risky. Like you have a completely vacant building now. That also gets a little risky because the city starts to get involved, or you get people trying to break into your units when there's nobody living there anymore, right? So like that's not the. We've tried that, and that's how I met Jaron. And I needed attorney service.
Best eviction attorney ever.
at an eviction hearing, that's where we met. Yep,
we tried that.
True.
I cleared an 8-unit building, and then I had all these issues come with
the city. Yeah.
And you guys have been in that building too. You walked it with me.
That was a nice building. Well. You did a good job with that.
Yeah, after trials and tribulations and spending way more money than we initially underwrote.
We kind of said that if it was like, man, this is too nice for this place.
Yeah.
Well, you said from Class C to Class A.
I was like, this is the Trump Tower in this neighborhood. This is.
Well, I've noticed that, not to get too far off topic here, but when I was some of the multifamilies that we bought maybe 2 years ago in the 2020-21 timeframe, we were able to raise rents significantly without making any improvements. I mean, sure, we'd come in there if they had a complaint about a toilet leaking or something. We're good landlords and we do that. But, the market has been so tight, especially here in this area, in the South Florida area and Florida generally. I don't know if every area in the United States is like this, but we've been able to bump rents significantly and have zero vacancies, more or less. I mean, people do move out once in a while, but when we bought a property, invariably, I would just go ahead within 30 to 60 days and raise rents, and no one left. So
it was a rare phenomenon this last year, maybe 6 months ago, where there were so many prospective tenants and so few units available that literally tenants were like, look, I don't care. Don't renovate it. I don't want to wait. I want to move in right now, and I'll give you the renovated rent.
Most of our tenants who are making offers on these rentals want it tomorrow. Like want to move
because
in
there's nothing.
tomorrow.
There's no place to live down here.
Everybody
It's
has
tough.
this sense of
So we're
urgency.
hearing from most investors we talk to.
Yeah. And the other thing I think I've learned regarding just the investment piece and how to think about it is down here, as you mentioned, Daniel, appreciation is the bigger piece of the puzzle when investing. Versus maybe some other parts of the country, values tend to hang the same, but you're maybe getting a 15 cap or something. I don't know, something crazy. I don't invest in other parts.
But in 10 years, you're going to make like 20% increase in value. Like, meh.
Yeah. So because of the population growth, because of the dynamic in Florida and South Florida specifically, that appreciation has been the bigger piece of the puzzle in generating wealth for me personally.
That's the best way, because otherwise you're taxed. Look, you're taxed on the cash flow, but you're not taxed on the appreciation. And when you refi with debt, it's tax-free money. So that's what? 30%? That's a 30% VIG.
And that's how we've grown. That's how I've grown. Just generally is do the refi play, right? Yep. Refi, pull as much cash. And a lot of our deals, I have none of my original cash in that deal.
That's infinite return. We call that infinite return.
Yeah. So
every deal you make is like infinite return.
So that's it. If you can pull that off, that's awesome. It's not super easy to do it, right?
Sure.
This is not
That's
this.
for
We're talking like this is easy, but
right.
It's definitely not easy.
That's for sure.
And then also around the comment of like just renovations versus or like how to handle a deal when you buy it. It's to me, it's like always very deal specific. I've got deals where, like we talked about, I've cleared the building and gutted the place to the studs. I got deals like the one I bought from you guys, 14 units where we did it little by little, made some renos. I've got deals that I've never touched that are terrible. I don't want to say terrible condition, but they're not in great condition, right? And we just left them. And like you can kind of watch the performance of all these different assets here, and it's like super interesting to see how, if you really do the math, because most people actually don't do the math, right? And most people like, yeah, I think the return was X, right? Mm-hmm. If you actually do the math and really look at what you spend versus your return, in some cases, I've found buying the building and doing nothing, at least in this past, like call it 5 years.
It's a very anomaly moment.
Yeah. That's the other thing, right?
That's the best way to do it. What you're doing right now is track it.
Yeah, so you track it and you kind of watch this stuff. It's like super interesting. The past 5 years, I've noticed that like if I didn't touch the buildings at all, and maybe and also this is dependent on if you want to refi, right? So like usually if I'm not gonna refi and I'm leaving a building alone, I just won't touch it. I won't put any more cash into it. And recently, those deals have performed really, really well from a cash on cash return perspective, from just a return, just with considering all your costs, right? So every deal is very unique and specific. You can't and that's why I don't think this is an easy game generally, because each deal you buy, you really have to think heavily on what you're going to do there. Yeah.
Well, you're right. It's not specific. It's so like the math on renovations to rents is if you spend $5,000 to renovate, you're getting a $100 increase in rents. You're making a 24% return on that $5,000. Where are you going to get that kind of return? Madoff offered 8 to 10. Okay, so invest in your property, but if you can get that $100 without investing the $5,000, why invest the $5,000?
Exactly.
Just push it down the field a little bit longer. Because that refrigerator and that stove and those cabinets, if they're still working and you're still making that 100 because the market's so much stronger, great. But if that property is in an area where the demographic demands those renovations to pay that $100, put that $5,000 in. Most people's like, why would I spend $5,000 just to get an extra $100? It's only $1,200 a year. It'll take me forever. 24%. That's why.
That's a calculation we do all the time, right there. Most people don't think about it like that, right? Yeah.
I had an investor. He had a beautiful property. And he said, Daniel, I got $700,000. I want you to help me find a 6 cap. And I was like, well, Bob, I mean, your 1 bedrooms are $750. They're going for 13 now. Yeah, but I don't want to spend the money renovating. So I did the same math in my head. He was like, well, wait, could you write that down for me? Like, you want me to get you a 6 cap, but if you invest a couple $100,000 in your property, you're going to make a 30-40% return. Wait, what? I don't understand. So he renovated 1 unit, got the rent. He was like, and then I did the math for him. He's like, I made a 46% return. I'm making a 46% return on the investment I put in there. I'm like, yeah. He's like, I think I can do the tile cheaper too. And then if I get, and now he renovated the whole property, happiest he's ever been. He's like, I'm so glad I didn't buy another deal and I invested in my property, making so much more money, and rents go up, quality of tenant goes up too, because they have to make more money. They have to come in with higher deposits. You're getting a better quality tenant that isn't going to trash your unit.
Sure.
Larry, what's the one cost in owning multifamily real estate that you just can't put on a piece of paper? You don't know what it's going to be. When that tenant moves out, you got to paint, or you got to change all the cabinets, all the appliances, because they trash the unit. Is it going to cost you $1,000 for paint or $7,000 to renovate every time that tenant leaves?
Yeah, I've had $8,000 to $10,000. I won't call them normal turnovers, but I wouldn't say where the tenant trashed it. It's just, maybe we needed to put a new vanity in, and then fix some tiles and fix some things, but it adds up really quick, or maybe putting in a new refrigerator, and when you have the list of those items that you're putting in there and it adds up to $8,000 to $10,000, that hurts. That hurts, especially when you have a 2-bedroom unit renting for $1,650. That's, what is that? I don't know, 7 months of rent.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's not fun.
And you guys are getting this anecdotal information and or in person when you're walking these buildings like every day. So you guys are fielding this regularly.
It's ingrained in my psyche.
Yeah. Yeah.
But just to piggyback off the point I just made, because really the conclusion for me is that with my units, I do something slightly different. Yes, I do push rents when they need to be pushed, but I always like to, if I were to ask you, say Daniel or Evan, what in this area, what could I rent these 2 ones for? And you said, well, how much are you renting them for now? And I said $1,650, and you said, well, you can push them to $1,850. I'm going to probably push them to $1,750 because I want as little vacancies as possible and as little turnover as possible, knowing that if my turnover, even a not so bad turnover, is $4,000 or $5,000, that again,
and that's smart, because you're not looking to sell it,
and I'm not looking to sell yet.
Term.
Exactly.
And
so if I was looking to sell, that's different. So do that analysis for me. If let's say I was looking to sell, what type of improvement should I make?
If you're looking to sell and a 3-unit building, you get one of those at top market rent.
Mm-hmm.
So you hit the top market pro forma. So then the next buyer that we bring sees that, look, this is the market. I could do it with these easy, and then we make the buyer pay for most of that pro forma before they even do it.
Because that's the market that we're in today. People will pay for that pro forma rent, right?
Yep.
Especially
if you prove it.
Exactly. Proving it's super important because again,
much like the ViewMax that we toured.
Exactly. And again, you can't, it's not super easy to always know the answer of what the market rents are in our world, right? Because it's just not public record everywhere. All these mom and pop owners are not publicly acknowledging what they're getting.
Unless you cold call them, meet them, and help them understand the value of their property. Then you know everything. And then you can parlay that into understanding the market.
So that's why proving it's important for 1 unit. You prove to the investor, boom, that they can
You prove it with an example in the property, and then you also prove it with a detailed rent survey of properties that are surrounding it that are matching those rents with similar renovations.
And that's what your offering memorandums have, all that data in there with charts and tables. And
well, we represent the seller. Yeah. So our job is to get the seller the highest price with the best possible terms. And we have to do that. We have to back up everything, every assumption we have, we back it up. And if we tell the seller, look, the ViewMax that we toured, the seller wanted me to go to market, and most of his rents were $300-$400 below market. And I'm like, I'm not going to get you this price unless you start raising these rents. They were disincentivized from raising those rents because of what happened with the partnership. But now they're like, you want to sell it, you got to get these rents up, or I'm not getting this price. You're going to leave $1 million or $2 million on the table. So uh-oh. So they started pushing rents. They started, they finished the renovations, and the new rentals are getting market rate. And now I can prove it. Now I'm going to get them probably an extra $1.5 million for that property.
Yeah,
incredible. They didn't put in $100,000. They didn't put in even $10,000. They just started raising the rents.
Thanks.